Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 1st edition of the Heart of Cary Association meeting. Good morning, especially to our panelist, our guest speaker, Ted Boyd. Thank you for being here with us this morning, Ted.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So October 1st is day one of the phase three, getting things reopened. And Ted and I had an opportunity to just touch on that early this morning. We hope that this new phase has a positive impact on all of our downtown businesses and gets people excited about coming back. There's really no introduction required. Everybody that's on the call this morning knows Ted, and we've included his bio for those of you who are watching this on a recorded line after the meeting. But I want to tell you that it's been a great pleasure getting to know Ted and his family. They're such a welcome addition to our community. We've seen so many amazing positive transitions over the course of the last 5-6 years, and to a very large part due to Ted's leadership. So thank you again for joining us this morning, Ted.
Thank you so much, Scott. Go ahead and.
Yes, so this morning, Ted is going to really jump right into his presentation. There's so much information to share. You will have an opportunity to ask additional questions on the chat. If you look down at the bottom of your screen, you will see a place where you can make some notes. Many of you have already sent in your questions, and we're grateful for that. And for the most part, it looks like Ted is going to be in a position to answer all of those that have already been asked. But if additional questions come up during the session, feel free to add those to the chat box. So without further ado, Ted, you have the floor.
Great. Thanks so much, Scott. And thank you all for the opportunity to be with you. I was sharing with Scott, this is the first time I have done a call from my office at Town Hall since March. And so I'm getting used to the fact that there's a sun coming in behind me. I don't usually have that at home, but with virtual school going on, I felt like it would probably be a little chaotic at my home, but thanks for letting us be here. As Scott was alluding to, this is actually, I've been with the town for 7 years, and it was this week. So yesterday was my 7-year anniversary where we moved to Cary and began. And my very first Heart of Cary meeting was this week, 7 years ago. And so I thought I wanted to look back at the first presentation that I gave when I was here. And so this is a little bit, the presentation was about 42 days in, so it wasn't my very first meeting that I was able to attend. But I think as we look at where we're headed to in the future and moving forward, it's always helpful to look back, at least for a period of time, and then realizing that even this little look back is nothing in comparison to where downtown Cary and Cary has been over the life as we're getting ready to celebrate our 150th anniversary.
Hey, Ted, one thing I just want to step in real quick before you start sharing. If you get off course,
sure.
I do have a mute button.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Please feel free to mute me.
Just kidding.
Well, great. Well, a couple of the elements from just flipping through some of these pieces. I had given a little introduction. This was my daughter, Anna. It's hard to believe that 1-year-old is now an 8-year-old. And we added Lauren a year after we had been here and growing within that. At the time, the town center area plan was sort of the guiding document that we were looking at for downtown Cary and how we were looking at growing within the full town center area. And just some of the things, the activity of things that we were looking at and talking about. And within this core, the Cary Arts Center had opened just a few years before, which was a fantastic addition to our downtown. This was the theater. Many will remember what it looked like, and it had not opened yet. It was still a few months away from actually opening 7 years ago. And You could see some of the construction that was beginning to happen during those pieces. And then we were beginning to start with streetscape along that edge of Chatham Street as well, making wider sidewalks to make more opportunities for pedestrians to be able to navigate through our downtown, but also to sit outside and enjoy this kind of a glimpse back of at least a section of what Chatham Street, East Chatham Street was looking like. We're all familiar with the fountain in the square, but before that, it was the performance screen is what we referred and called it as. We had a little concrete pad that we could put out there and pull the stage, but it was a nice landscaped area as we were all talking about and planning for what was the first phase of the park. And then we looked at what were some things on the horizon at that time. We had the town had it was just the Jones House at that time. Now it's the Sam's Jones House. And so we were able to learn and begin making improvements to that. The town park, it extended back well beyond 7 years, almost 20 years in the making, as the full build out with the 7 acres within that and what would be happening with the library and all of those discussions beginning to happen. And the Academy streetscape improvements, we had not yet begun the section of improvements within that. So as we kind of jump in, I wanted to take a little look back and now I was sharing with Scott, this is sort of, I feel like my mixtape of highlights of presentations that have been happening, that have been sharing with council and in other formats, putting them all together. And it's kind of like just a walk through downtown a little bit and to be able to share what's happening and what's going on. And so as a reminder, you know, I mentioned the town center area plan was our guiding document. Since then we have the Imagine Cary community plan that is there, of which downtown is a key part, and that vision remains very consistent with what was there from the beginning, and a guiding sort of roadmap, if you will, as to where we're headed within what we would like to see for our downtown. So I'm going to start out over on East Chatham Street. So off to the right-hand side would be the roundabout. The green, just as you're referencing or looking at, using to indicate sort of a private development project that is happening, and yellow sort of indicates some sort of town project that would be sort of responsibility in the works being discussed and talked about. What specifically the yellow is referring here is on our transportation plan to see the Hunter Street extension. So Hunter Street extending over to Cedar Street. And in many ways, what that's allowing us to do is to create in more of a grid network within our downtown. And the grid becomes very helpful from a standpoint of when navigating. It's very pedestrian friendly, so you're not having to walk long blocks in order to get other parts within the town. And then over time, you know, it allows us to look at what warrants, you know, in this kind of section here, would that be a traffic light or not? Or, you know, thinking about the crosswalk so that can make it safer ways for people to walk and get through. So I'm going to talk through a couple of the projects that are within here. This was a photo looking at Chatham Walk, which is a for sale condominium project. And it's a little further along even than this picture if you've been by recently. And then the heavy equipment that you can see in the front is actually for Urban Place, which is an apartment project, about 28 units within that, Lad Commercial doing that, and design that's underway. They're doing a lot of the foundation and groundwork within those pieces too, but important to add more opportunities for people to, more housing opportunities within our downtown, people to be able to live and work. Right in front of where the Chatham Walk project was the Williams House. And you've flashback photo, you can see the Williams House in the back, some of the Jordan family in the photo here. It was moved a little bit further down East Chatham Street, headed towards Walker Street, with the goal to be able to add some new life to it, add a modern addition to the back for office, and then retail opportunity for the project there. You can see they've actually painted it, you know, in the progress so far, but you can see how it's starting to take shape, and creating more opportunity within our downtown area. So I'm sliding a little bit more from the Walker Street section and Academy Street section now. I'm going to start a little bit at the Academy Street and work our way back. So taking a older photo, it's always love looking at the photos of the past of Cary to see snapshots and to the time. So here you're standing at almost in the middle of Chatham Street near the intersection of Academy and looking towards East Chatham Street. In the distance, you can see the dry cleaner sign right here, where the cursor is at within that. And then this is in what is now, it's 111 East Chatham Street, which the new owners are referring to it as the center. But you can see where this is where Type A 101 is, looking across to the old Mitchell's Pharmacy. You can see the water tower in the back. I often said it would be cool if we still had that water tower. But a little bit of history, I think you may all know this, but believe that the very top of the water tower is, if you go down East Chatham Street where the subway is, behind the subway, there's a circle or sort of a cylindrical shaped storage building. And I believe that the roof of that is actually the top of that old water tower. So wow. It may be an urban legend I just created or whatever, but it sounds pretty good. So
I've seen the footers to the tower. It's right behind my office. There was, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So they're working on to do some new life into this building. One of the most important improvements is going to be improving our streetscape. Similar to what we have on the theater side, we want to begin to see that on the northern side of Chatham Street. And so you can, the plans, so to the left side here is kind of where the Gherkins begins, kind of mimicking the element of wider sidewalks. And then the owners are kind of creating a patio area here, which didn't exist. Back in the day when this building was a dry cleaner, this was actually a drive-through. So your car could actually come through that area and pick up your dry cleaning and then move out. So kind of creating more opportunities for people to be here in a new sort of food and beverage concept to add some life. And then over on the Type A 101 side, it's kind of creating some plaza space within here. Again, wider sidewalks. And so you kind of get the ability for people to hang out, especially in today's day and age of being outdoors and socially distancing. So to kind of put some eyeballs on it, this is looking where you would have the outdoor space here, get wider sidewalks that would happen through the elements and actually safer sidewalks. And then, similarly here, you can see this area would be dug out. And so some great improvements that'll be happening within here. So another old photo here to kind of orient you a little bit. The road that is right behind these Cary Fire Department vehicles is Walker Street. So this is the intersection of Walker Street and Chatham Street. Kind of bring it a little bit. So this is where modern service is. So looking in that same direction, I think everybody would like to have 51 or 52 cent gas. It's funny that economy was just 1 cent cheaper there. That's what I noticed there. But you could see kind of the area moving down a little bit. This is kind of looking almost from where the theater is today. You can see Johnson's Jewelers, and then to the left, the old Rogers Motel. And then a little bit closer shot of the Rogers Restaurant, Rogers Motel. And where the new development is being planned there, just kind of being referred to as a Rogers development. And want to kind of take to the area a little bit. So this is where the Rogers development or Rogers Restaurant was currently. The town owns this property here, which is a 109 Walker Street that's sort of highlighted. Cedar Street up to about behind where Bond Brothers is actually in the railroad right-of-way. And so when we begin thinking about the long-term future, it began to make sense to say, what if we kind of created an alleyway that could kind of be behind here that then enhances the existing Rogers Alley that we have, allows the development to kind of move this way and create greater access and flow. So that way if in the future portions of Cedar Street ever had to go away because of railroad elements, we would still be able to have connection and flow through this area. So, you know, the idea of seeing Rogers Alley in its sort of current condition, you know, imagine if it was, you know, something that was more inviting, a little bit more designed for people than just vehicles kind of coming through. And so that was really taken to heart. And so this are some renderings of what this new development would look like. It's sort of purposely done to not be one sort of homogeneous building, but to kind of have some character with two different sort of styles connected. So this is looking from the intersection of Walker Street and Chatham and looking back. And then as you kind of move and come along, you can see the improvements of Rogers Alley that would happen, and kind of envisioning those pieces. And then in some cases, you know, looking at least the front half of that being restricted, so there would not be any vehicular access. It's, you know, in the first portion of that, there would obviously be vehicular access behind that. So, you know, kind of looking at how we, as we move through these development pieces, and would work through those elements. But the improved sidewalks and streetscape within that, kind of connecting more of those elements. And right across from here, you got to give a warm nod and hooray to Sheila and Sean and team for opening Daybreak. You know, it is a very challenging time for restaurants, retail, special events. And so kudos to you all for sticking to it and to being open and doing and scrambling in the midst of this. And I know many folks are working on those pieces, but
part of the fun, scrambling, right? By the way, the pancakes are amazing, and so are the breakfast. It's fantastic. You'll love it.
Wonderful. And just a quick nod, it's not too far from this area, but something that's happened within the last few months is the Cooper building has taken a facelift and has gotten new life, welcoming in First Bank into downtown. And then I'll have some new tenants with Stevenson Law and McKeenan. The development group will be taking over. So very excited to see, you know, kind of new life being brought into some older buildings in our downtown. So now we're going to cruise down South Academy Street a little bit and take a look at some things happening within this area. Obviously, man, I was looking at this picture this morning, and it made me miss being able to be out there with everybody and to be able to gather in that way. And so it's a little, you know, longing to be able to get back to those times. But very excited with the plans that we're working on. Hopefully you've seen these, the approved master plan, and then just kind of some updated with that, just to kind of add a little more color and life. And what I'm going to do next is I have a bunch of just renderings, and you know, we could do a whole presentation just on the park itself. But I'm just going to kind of scan through them just so you can take a look without giving a whole lot of commentary, just so I don't, but just so everybody can kind of take a look. I may give some reference so you can, you know, see the fountain, you know, just as reference kind of coming along Academy Street, kind of some renderings of what it could look like at night. Then the idea is having a sort of an indoor kind of curated market within here. So obviously the park will be able to accommodate the downtown farmers market. So this, not talking about farmers market here, but, you know, say you're coming to the park and you want to be able to have a picnic, or you forgot, you know, your sunscreen or something along those lines. How could we have that highly curated market where you can kind of meet the needs of folks coming in?
Beautiful. Dazzling. What a vision.
I mean, I'm ready to go down some of these slides. I mean, I was playing Chutes and Ladders the other day with one of my daughter's friends, and I was like, this is like Chutes and Ladders come to life right here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Wow.
water a key feature.
Mm-hmm. When the view of all of this from the top of the parking deck would be amazing.
Yeah. Just a couple of timelines from the schedule. You can see the first little piece there, we already have stormwater elements that are already underway because they're associated with the One Walker, One Walnut project that are happening. So, so all of that is actually benefiting the park and underway. Looking at summer 2021 with the main park construction beginning. So, you know, a groundbreaking perhaps in the May timeframe within that, and then looking summer 2023 for full park construction completed within that.
Okay.
And then again, the looking at the new library and our parking deck within that, and I was just so impressed to see how many people showed up for the grand opening of that library. It was pretty awesome to see that. And no, we're all anxious to be able to get back in using that in safe ways. But very thankful that they're allowing folks to pick up books in the book drop. You know, there's obviously the development that's happening around there. References one called One Walnut, One Walker. This is sort of the corner up of Walnut Street near Dry. So this would be a commercial building. So ground floor retail with office above. And then as it transitions, you know, this is the edge in the park. So this will be about 150 apartments that are under construction now. And then they kind of come around up on Walker Street into this corner. Again, apartments here with some ground floor retail and opportunity that's happening. And that's currently happening and under construction now. And you can see a lot of the stormwater work that's taking place. Just to the northern edge of the park, just across Park Street is Park Station. Property, the townhome development through Envision Homes, and they're well underway within those. I was able to take a sneak peek inside a while back, and they have done just a tremendous job with these. Yeah. And then the views kind of from the rooftop will be tremendous as they kind of move through. So. And then while we're in the neighborhood there, MC, don't know if they kind of had a quick open and a quick slowdown with the COVID, but they've done a great job of getting back, and excited to see Chef Michael Chung and just his excitement for being in the space. And if you don't even eat the food, just take a look at the pictures, because the pictures are pretty exciting. Just
the food is fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous.
And now I just wanted to transition just to a few things that are kind of on the horizon. So studies, things that I want to make sure people are aware of and taking advantage of. So this is the old library site. And I kind of jokingly refer to it now as Augusta National, as it's become a wonderful lawn area. And, you know, at the time, who would have known that everything with the pandemic, that this would have just been another great spot to have people outside and hanging out and in safely ways with doing that. And so I believe that our town manager, Sean, spoke with you all maybe a month or two ago. And I know he shared that, you know, we still continue to view this as a redevelopment site. There's no plan to kind of move forward with anything through, you know, at least till the end of the year. But, you know, obviously incorporating what makes sense and what works well. I think that this, you know, obviously it's a lovely green space, but there's a uniqueness to the fact that there was always a public component to it. And so I think those are always important elements of kind of incorporating into new or future developments that could be there, is how do you kind of maintain some of those ideas and concepts as you move through. So stay tuned on those pieces. The Chapel Hill Road study that we're looking at, last night they did, you know, we're learning how to do virtual symposiums or virtual neighborhood meetings, and to stay informed. Hopefully you all had seen the survey that went out, had an opportunity to be able to share some of your thoughts on that. But really kind of, I think this is probably one of our kind of most interesting and important projects that we've got kind of going on, because, you know, I know a lot of times there's questions about how do we deal with, you know, traffic in downtown, or how are we going to manage those pieces, which are great questions. And one of the best things that we have that's in place is actually the Maynard Loop. And so if for those folks who are just trying to navigate around downtown, how do we think about the Maynard Loop, and really kind of Chapel Hill Road being a good, strong connection, sort of the east-west sort of connection, but really, you know, not that it needs to be simply just vehicular centric, because, you know, if you just look at this map, you know, most everything up to the north of this are all residential homes, all people that are living there, that if they're safe and convenient ways to get across Chapel Hill Road, it means that you could walk or bike rather than have to get in your car, which then, you know, decreases the amount of parking burden right in the core of downtown. And so thinking through all those pieces, you know, can Chapel Hill Road be a strong bike amenity to be able to kind of connect through? So seeing all of those pieces go through. So just starting that phase within that. So please stay engaged. Great information on the town's website about that project. Parking constantly comes up. It was something I know I mentioned 7 years ago in the presentation, and it will always be here. So we have some new parking consultants on board to be able to help us with looking at future parking needs. There's funding that's been set aside both through the bonds and council action, specifically in downtown. And one area that we're, you know, kind of beginning to have conversations with the Methodist Church in downtown on the surface parking lot that they have there, and kind of will begin the phase of seeing if we could create in partnership with them some structured parking for the public there. And then the multifamily references just as a whole, looking at multifamily parking structure within Cary, not simply just in downtown, but within that. So several parking studies and working on those projects as well. And then this one, this is the kind of the project of the Jordan First Baptist Church Town of Cary project. One day we'll come up with a good name for that, but a better name, more succinct name. But at the intersection of Harrison and West Chatham Street, I'm bringing up here, it's approved, and we're kind of going through the agreements elements so that we can begin design phases and those pieces for this project. But this, I believe, begins to become a catalyst project and beginning to start thinking about West Chatham Street. A lot of what I've talked about has been East Chatham Street, South Academy Street, some stuff happening within North Academy Street a little bit. But how do we think about, you know, the character of this street? How does it need to feel like it's connected to all of our downtown? It has a very different character, you know, as soon as you cross Harrison. There's some great opportunity within this. So being able to think about the connection of how we make this feel a more walkable component, as well as still serving traffic navigating through. And then even, you know, as you kind of move down and looking at the Western Roundabout, there's will be some new development opportunity and thinking through those elements. You know, the gas station is not going to come back as a gas station. And so, you know, being able to see how we can begin to extend, you know, our downtown. It's roughly a mile from roundabout to roundabout. And I think that, you know, to this day, you know, today it feels like probably a 5-mile walk. And ultimately we would love for it to feel like, you know, it was a 2-second walk, but because there were so many things along the way that were drawing you in and walking down. So thinking about this kind of as a corridor study of sorts and putting that. And then lastly, talking about sort of the mixed use multimodal center. This was a slide from a work session that we had at towards the end of February to begin talking about this with our council. So looking at and you know, where that site needs to be best fit to be able to serve bus rapid transit, commuter rail, all of the different parking needs and bus needs and transit needs, because that plays into all of that. And we'll be having a lot of notifications coming out soon to be able to talk similarly like the Chapel Hill Road study about ways to be engaged and learn more as we kind of go through that process as well. And with that, I will conclude because as I said, it is, it takes a bit to get used to not being able to see everybody's eyeballs and know whether they're tracking or not. But
yeah, well, I can tell you, everybody's very engaged. There's a bunch of questions that have come in, but I thought if you wouldn't mind, before we jump into the questions, if you could circle back to the Chapel Hill from Maynard to Maynard, that 2.5 mile stretch. One of the things that really impressed me about the town's leadership in the way they've engaged local constituents, property owners, developers, brokers. One of the first questions they asked was, do you see Chapel Hill Road either now or even in the future as being part of downtown Cary? And if not, how do you envision it? How do you use it? Are you biking, you walking, you driving? And the feedback that came really provided the town with the information they needed to engage a group to study it at length and determine what's the best way to make this a better part of our community. And it's very impressive to see how our town's leadership has made it an important part of what we're doing instead of waiting before it's too late.
Yeah.
So very grateful for that.
Great.
So one of the first questions that came up related to public safety and specifically about Chatham Street. So there's a lot of cars and motorcycles that zip through going sometimes 45 miles an hour without regards to people trying to cross the street. I've seen some communities like Scottsdale where they'll actually put up these metal posts, every so many feet just to prevent a pedestrian from getting struck when somebody accidentally loses control of their vehicle or intentionally loses control of their vehicle. Is there any thoughts about changing the streetscape to provide more pedestrian protection?
So, I mean, I think that's a piece that we always are looking at and being able to kind of test whether it's an element of policing, whether it's an element of physical design. And some of it is education that comes on the part of the motorist. I've had several folks go, Ted, I got a ticket because there was a pedestrian standing at the beginning of the crosswalk and I didn't stop. I didn't know I had to stop. And so they ended up getting a ticket for that. And so I think those are the pieces when you begin is a full education element within that. I do think that, take Academy Street, you have a plan and we have, 1 second. I forgot about my lights just turn off if I'm not moving enough. I guess I wasn't moving enough. Academy Street was a great plan. It's produced phenomenal results from a standpoint of sidewalks and walkability and increasing that. But just because it's built doesn't mean that it's perfect and it's finalized. So it's constantly going back and seeing how are the crosswalks making sense, not making sense, and what are sort of the patterns that people are taking. So I think there's a full range of options that could be considered, kind of to your point of like what you were asking, a specific application. A lot of times we need to, drill down on problem areas if they're there and see how we can look at it. But we want people to feel safe on all fronts when you're coming to downtown. If you don't feel safe, then you're not going to want to come downtown, whether that's navigating, walking, or just, safety and look and feel.
Beautiful. Thank you. So one of the questions that came up was the Hunter Street extension. We talked a little bit about that earlier, recognizing that it primarily is to bring in pedestrian cross traffic. Was there any thoughts about using any other roads? Why did they choose Hunter Street? Was there a particular?
You know,
development there?
I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why it was put on the plan. It was done a long time ago, long before I was a part of the town.
Okay.
And so, but when you look at it, when, you know, one of the things that's important in a downtown is, I think, a grid network. So you're trying to create smaller blocks that makes it easier to walk through or navigate or get through. And that way it's a little bit more functional within those pieces. And then over time, it allows us to see, you know, does that need to become a signalized intersection? How all of these kind of pieces work together. So there's not a lot of grid in our downtown, you know, and so that sort of made sense with that connection for Hunter Street to extend through, and just kind of looking from the map standpoint within that. So yeah.
All right, so some of the feedback has been, is there anything that we can do to perhaps encourage the town to reduce the speed limit within a specific um, segment, you know, like right out in front of the restaurants or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that there's a variety of things that are done within that. So when I was referencing, you know, thinking back even West Chatham Street, you know, the speed limit on West Chatham Street, I think, is 35. And then once you cross Harrison, it drops to 25.
Yeah.
So one element is looking at things holistically. You know, why is the speed limit that way? You know, so speed is one element. The other thing is, what is the environment around you that's beginning to inform you of things? Do I see people hanging out? Do I see people around that might cause me as a motorist to say, I need to pay more attention here? Now, I get that some people are distracted regardless. But, you know, an example was, say, right in front of where Fresh and Crosstown are. There used to be one parking space there. And I know that there were a lot of people that were sad the day that it went away, because usually you were the only one that knew that space was there, and you usually could get it, and it was very convenient. But when we're beginning to think about that safety in vehicles, so we filled it in to create more sidewalk, which gave more safety to pedestrians to be able to be kind of removed from the parking. And then it helps the motorist to be able to see that there are people there, not just a car parked within those pieces. So I think all those elements are on the table to look at what the right speeds need to be. But I think as we add more places for people, it also helps slow traffic down, as well as creating opportunities for people who want to get around or just trying to get through downtown. You know, Maynard could be the right way to do that for you.
Yeah, makes sense. So if we were to take a look at West Chatham Street 15, 20 years from now, looking back to today, what do you imagine would have to happen along that segment for you know, the community to be really happy with the progress?
So you know, one of the things I think is the road width itself is an advantage already, because it allows us to be able to think about widening sidewalks, offering some on-street parking, and creating and thinking through what the development pattern needs to be within that, to be able to encourage more folks that want to walk through there and come through that area as well too. I believe that's it's a little node that, you know, if you live you know, in a lot of the townhomes that are just past the roundabout there. Yeah, Samuel's Keep. It feels like a long way before you get to things happening in downtown, before you get to La Farm or Annalores. So the ability to kind of fill in those gaps with the right kind of new development, the pieces that can happen within that. But looking at it kind of holistically about, you know, how does the form of the buildings intersect with the street? How do we get those buildings kind of coming up to the street within those ways? Are there pedestrian, you know, again, given space, do you put pedestrian refuge at certain places to be able to make it safe to, you know, kind of stop in the middle if you need to before you go all the way across? So
got it. Could you bring up that segment on your screen?
Yeah,
the West Park section.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the limitations is, you know, the properties on the north side obviously have the railroad behind them, so that's a limitation.
Right.
And then you do have some residential development immediately behind some of the road fronted property.
Mhm.
So it looks like there's going to be some assemblage needed to really create anything of substantial value down
Mhm.
that way. But nothing currently on the planning table. No, to your knowledge, nobody submitted any grandiose plans.
No, no. I'm just really kind of talking about it from the, you know, the looking into the future phase
Mhm.
of how do we begin. I mean, to your points, there's some challenges to this. You know,
Mhm.
you have
Yeah.
some constraints that are different, and
Mhm.
so how do you help get, you know, meaningful connections and meaningful elements? And I think it doesn't just happen, and so and I
Mhm.
think that's evident by our council and just seeing downtown from the beginning. You know,
Mhm.
like we're not just gonna try to let it happen. We're gonna be
Right.
deliberate about it. And
No,
so,
I remember about maybe 15, 20 years ago, there was actually a plan to uh, modify the streetscape, and then the transition. I think the community decided it was more appropriate to invest the money onto Academy Street and Chatham.
well, I think there was a pretty significant plan to do Chatham and Academy, and I think
Mhm.
that it was the economy of 2008, 9
That's right.
that
That's
made,
right.
I think, put some of those plans on hold, and so then it was doing Academy Street as just sort of the next step, but kind of in that same spirit, realizing, you know, how do you help make this a cohesive element and part of our downtown? I was about to, there was one question I saw where it asked if COVID had delayed the retail shops going in front of the library within
Mhm.
that. Just wanted to, the development of that building is moving forward within those pieces. So you know, I think that they were ahead of the element of the construction phase of that, and it'll be still a period of time before the buildings are constructed and the retail opportunities will fully present themselves. But we're still, I think, seeing some really strong activity within that. So we'll see what that impact will be and kind of monitor it on a daily basis, or monthly basis is what I'd say. But so far, it's not had too significant of an impact.
All
And as
right.
always, if there are any other questions that come up, please feel free to email or let me know, and be happy to do my best to respond.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. That was an awesome presentation, Ted. Very uh, full of great information. And fortunately, we're in a position to be able to edit out uh, my lost internet connection. So that concludes today's presentation, but there's a couple of items I'd like to remind everyone of. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 5th, same time, 8 to 9. Chris Carmichael from the Page Walker will be here presenting. And we're also expecting a short 15-minute visit from Bill Fletcher from the school board to kind of give us an update. Hopefully we'll have some exciting things to share. And I want to thank you again, Ted, on behalf of Heart of Cary Association. I want to thank the town for allocating you and your time to this morning's presentation. Um, I look forward to having you present next year and looking back to today and imagining great things that have transpired. I hope that you're right, that we'll be re-engaging back at the downtown park very, very soon. It's a sad situation that we're going through right now. If anybody here has experienced family loss, I'm terribly sorry for what you've experienced. We hope that there's something that we can do as a community to help make your life a little brighter. So this has been Scott Corbin from the Heart of Cary Association, wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful month ahead, and have a great day.